Continuing E. A. Wallis Budge's The Dwellers on the Nile, The Life, History, Religion, and Literature of the Ancient Egyptians. We're continuing Chapter 7, The Wisdom of the Egyptians. The doctrine of the sacredness of certain numbers must have formed a part of the science of astrology. Among such being 3, 4, 7, 9, 27, 42, 75, 77, 110, etc. Well, 360 is included, right? But thus we have 3 entities, the triad, and 3 divisions of the world, heaven, sky, and duat, the 4 sons of Horus, 4 quarters of the world, 4 blazing flames, see the Book of the Dead, chapter 137a, 4 altars, 4 doors of heaven, 4 rudders of heaven, 4 vessels of blood, 4 vessels of milk, 7 arites, aritu, I think, 7 hawks, 7-headed serpent, 7 scorpions of Isis, 7 spirits. See the Book of Revelation, the reference to the 7 Holy Ghosts, but 9 entities in a company, 9 chiefs, 9 anuchis, 9 nations who use the bow, 27 entities, 3 companies, 9 times 3, 42 gnomes, 42 assessors, 75 addresses to Ra, 77 in magical papyri, 110 years, the limit of a man's life. Scientific instruments. No remains of any such things have come down to us. Nothing like the tube of a telescope has been found, and though the Egyptians knew how to make glass paste under the Old Kingdom, the lens was unknown to them. They had no mechanical instruments for the measuring of time, whether sundial or gnomon or clock. The water clock was introduced by the Greeks. There is no truth in the statements that they lighted their tombs by electricity and protected their buildings by lightning conductors. For the metal cases of the pyramidions of the obelisks and the metal caps of poles had no contact with the earth. Well, I'm not sure if that alone proves it, but there's certainly been a lot of outlandish claims, but some claims are possible even though they're advanced. The Egyptians never made and never could make any advance in physical science because they considered natural phenomena to be due directly to the operation of the entities. Alchemy. The Egyptians possessed great skill under the working of metals, gold, copper, iron, etc. Under the Old Kingdom, and the crafts of the goldsmith, the blacksmith, the smelter, and metal engraver attained a high pitch of perfection in the latter periods of their history, but no evidence exists in the inscriptions that they were adepts in the art of alchemy, which is generally understood to have had for its object the transmutation of the baser metals into gold and silver. The word alchemy comes to us through the Arabic al-kimia. There's a glottal stop at the end. Alchemia. The chemia, al being the particle here, the chemia is said to be the means of art and knowledge of the chemi, or the chemi, which is the Coptic form of Kamt, Egypt, or in another form. Now the name Kamt means the black land of the delta as opposed to the red land or deserts of Upper Egypt. So Chemia is the black art of Egypt. In the Middle Ages, the black art was often regarded as black magic, of which Egypt was the home. See, you definitely see how the slander against magic came up. Medicine from the days of Homer downwards. The Egyptians were famous for their skill in surgery and their knowledge of the art of healing. The practice of the art of mummification must have taught them something of anatomy, and there seems to be no doubt that they possessed much knowledge about the properties of certain herbs and their effect on the human body. But it is impossible for modern medical experts to decide how great or how little was their knowledge of the art of healing, because we have no papyri that can be seriously regarded as books of medicine. Several papyri inscribed with long series of prescriptions are known, and those who are competent to pass an opinion upon the value of the few diagnoses given in them regard them as rudimentary and unscientific. It is well known that they used many vegetable and mineral substances in their medicines, but what these were cannot always be said, because in our present state of knowledge it is impossible to identify them. Okay, they must be unscientific and not using real medicine, but we can't understand what they're doing. You know. Besides these, they used the excreta of men and of many kinds of animals, and other substances which we consider loathsome. Many of these disgusting prescriptions resemble those that were in the use in Babylonia and Assyria and northern lands at a later period, and some of them found their way into the books of English herbalists. The Egyptians thought that sickness and diseases were caused by demons and devils. Well, there's certainly can go together, but who sometimes made their ways into the limbs and members of the sufferers and could only be expelled by the help of spells and incantations, or by the direct assistance of Isis, Thoth, or Imhotep. The help of the entities could be obtained by offerings and sacrifices, and the goodwill of the physician by liberal payments. Well, or so they thought. But whether by faith or by other means, spiritual practices, aside from the physical side, do have their work, just like the placebo effect and the faith in prescriptions. The efficacy of the prescription depended upon the magical power, Haka, which he could invoke, and the might of the entity who could be persuaded to come and vanquish the demon of disease. The physician sometimes sprinkled the patient with holy water or anointed him with holy oils, and the value of massage was well known. Amulets laid on the body or hung up in the sick man's room were used as a means of healing. The physician and the magician and sorcerer held in his hand a short rod when reciting spells and exorcisms. From the time of the Old Kingdom to the days of Nectanebus, the last native king of Egypt, sometimes a hooded cobra was substituted for the rod. By pressing a part of the neck of the cobra, it could be made to straighten itself out like a rod, and when the pressure was removed from the creature, it assumed its normal form. This trick was practiced by Pharaoh's sorcerers in the presence of Aaron and Moses, Exodus 7:12, and the snake charmers of Egypt perform it at the present day. The Egyptian could easily have become a scientific physician, but in medicine, as in astronomy and physical science, all development was made possible by this belief in demonology and religious magic. I'm getting rumbly in the tumbly at the mention of all this magic, huh? The following is a prescription for a headache from the Epirus Papyrus. And let's... Another prescription, the sixth, which was made by the entity Isis, Ra himself, just to drive out the pain which was in his head. Coriander seed, seeds of the cassit plant, poppy, sa'am leaves, seeds of the shams plant, juniper berries, honey. Make these, one of each. Oh, well, they weren't listing differences in portions. Make these into a single substance, rub it with honey, smear it over the patient's head so that he may get relief quickly. If all these remedies be applied to the patient suffering from pain of any kind in the head, or from any discomfort and trouble of any kind, he will obtain relief immediately. Epirus Papyrus, plate 47, lines 5 through 10.